Hello, and welcome to our webinar on utilizing ChatGPT in ABA. I'm Amy Cook, BCBA and Community Manager from Rasmus, and I want to go over a few things before we get started. First, you will be eligible to earn one free CEU if you're watching this live and complete a few requirements. We will share 3 keywords throughout the webinar that you will need to write down. After the webinar, I will share an online form to complete, and you will type in the 3 keywords to confirm your participation. A recording will be sent out to all registrants. However, only live participants are eligible to earn the CEU. The first keyword is HI, spelled H-I. Before I hand it over to our fabulous guest speaker, Mellanie, I want to share a little bit more about Rasmus. Rasmus is an ABA clinical software company that was inspired by our founder's son, Rasmus, who was diagnosed with autism early in his life. Our goal is to help deliver the highest quality behavioral therapy services to 1 million children with autism by helping the people who help them: behavior analysts, techs, teachers, parents, and clinical directors. We provide the best clinical platform so you can keep the focus on the child in front of you. Our team understands how hard BCBAs work every day and wanted to give back to the community with a CEU that's not only filled with innovative ideas, but tools that will also save you time. With that said, I will let Mellanie Page introduce herself and get us started.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to Rasmus. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and what a cool founding story. I will start sharing and jump right in to make sure we've got our CEU time. Thanks to everyone who's taking some time out of their day to listen. This is an area that I'm incredibly passionate about. This is technology that is going to change ABA. And so if you're here, I imagine you're innovative or curious or maybe a naysayer. And so I'm hoping I convert some people to the world of AI and how to apply it in ABA. I really feel like in this industry, ABA is going to require efficiency. We're seeing burnout, task overload, lots of stress around the services we provide, and we can't be our highest quality providers if we don't have efficiency and a good way of doing the things that we need to do each day. So I'm hoping that this helps a few of you today, and I'll share some other tips in the future. So my name is Mellanie Page. I am a BCBA and MBA, and my interest is in really applying behavior analytic principles to organizations and operational contexts. That's kind of how my background has developed and evolved over time. And so this is a perfect avenue for applying skills in technology and skills in efficiency and process improvement to our clinical services. So our objectives today are learning how AI will change ABA therapy, identifying ways to leverage ChatGPT for caregiver training, BT skill development, and treatment enhancement. This is a very, very short list of the capabilities that ChatGPT has, but we'll start here. And then I'm going to review examples and application of the technology. I will say that this is not a blank space. It should have a title. For some reason, I don't know what the reason is, it's not showing up. So this one should say, what is ChatGPT? So for those that haven't explored it on their own yet, and this is kind of your first taste into the technology, ChatGPT is a model that essentially accesses a large database and then functions like a conversationalist with its user. So rather than Google, where you talk one way to ask questions, and then you have to kind of navigate and see where your answers are and go through a whole path to find exactly what you're looking for, this conversational model allows you to give feedback and have an actual interaction with the technology. And you'll see how that works, and I'll show lots of examples. But I highly recommend that you practice as we go along, and I'll show you how to log in just a second. So the main uses that I want to emphasize for ChatGPT, because there is a lot of trepidation around using technology in ABA, fear that is valid about people misusing it or abusing it. And I want to emphasize right at the start of this presentation that I believe that the main goals or use for ChatGPT are to support, teach, and learn. So ChatGPT should be an additive element for treatment, not to help you develop a treatment, right? You have education and experience for a reason. So make sure that you're using it as an added element. Teaching. So this tool learns through feedback. So you can teach it. And that's one of the ways that I really want to emphasize getting the right response and refining the information that you receive so that you have the most valuable experience, get the most valuable content and resources from the technology. And I'll show you how to do that as well. And then learning. So it's not our job to just plug in a prompt and get a response and then copy and paste that into a program, right? Our goal is to learn what ideas did this technology generate from this whole database of information. It's not unlike researching the answer to a question or a solution to a problem. You want to learn from the ideas and thoughts that it generates, because that is how you become a stronger clinician too. And I truly believe that AI can help us become more effective clinicians and more malleable to the different needs of our clients. So some of the task list items that we'll cover today include E2, so responsibility of as a professional and a clinician using ChatGPT. So that's the context in which we're going to talk about our responsibility. G1, G3, and G6, we're really going to see how we can expand reinforcers and generate new ideas for utilizing established reinforcers using technology. H3, we're going to incorporate client preferences, right? Because using a technology doesn't mean that we can't individualize treatment. And so this is going to cover how we can incorporate client preferences, overcome barriers, and actually individualize treatment even further than we maybe do today. And I4 is train personnel to competently perform assessment and intervention procedures. And we'll apply that to the BT population, which I know right now is challenging to train. So if you want to follow along with me and maybe try some things as we go, I'm very hands-on in terms of learning and teaching. So if you want to create a ChatGPT account and you don't have one already, you can do that really quickly. Log in and start a new chat. It looks just like that screenshot, and then practice as we go along. Think of your own clients, think of your own experiences, and see how these different prompts apply. And just as a note, some of these are very foundational or basic prompts so that you can customize it, and I'll show you how to do that. So the way that the system works is a general structure for a prompt, which is basically what you're asking the technology to do for you. Might be something like create and then specify what kind of resource. And I've listed some resources on the right there that you can include or ask for: articles, data analysis, summaries, lists, explanations, activities, or games. You can ask that and fill it in as your resource for a learner type. So here's where you want to, avoiding PHI, the system doesn't need to know the child's name or any detailed information that can identify them, but you can describe your learner type. So here in the middle, I've included some suggestions for that. What's their communication level? What are the challenging behaviors that you're facing? How old are they? Maybe you want to include functional age if you want activities or things that are more related or compatible with that client's skill set. And then any culturally relevant information. There's a lot of feedback about ChatGPT not being responsive to cultural needs. And I really feel like it's our job as users to generate really effective, valuable prompts that include the relevant information so we get answers that apply. So then you're asking it to consider any clinically relevant details, and then you can also include constraints, which right now we lack some of the creativity to work in the settings that we're working in, to work with the lack of resources we may have in some homes. And so I really feel like this technology can help us bridge that gap. So this is the structure of a prompt, and it's a starting point. Of course, you can iterate from here, but this will help you generate some effective prompts. So let's start with caregiver training as the first application of ChatGPT. So one way to use ChatGPT in caregiver training is to generate ideas for caregivers to independently generalize treatment into their own environment and within their constraints and personal barriers. And some of the benefits that we see in applying ChatGPT, or can see if we do this diligently, we can strengthen the supervisory relationship. Why? Because now we're allowed to have quality time, focus on our treatment plan, not time responding or reacting to every need that the individual has. It increases self-reliance for them and empowers them to find answers and solutions to their child's challenges or behaviors or treatment delivery, so they can do that on their own. It improves their confidence. So as they do this more and they find answers and they try things and it works, or they try something and it doesn't work, but they can immediately find an alternative solution, you're going to see their confidence develop, and that relationship will strengthen because of that as well. Supports quality of life, because now we're considering, again, all of these constraints and resources. Where am I going to be? The context, rather than just blankly applying a program that I've used with other kids in the past and it's worked, and so I'm going to use it here again, right? I'm supporting the quality of life for this particular family, and I'm letting the caregiver also develop and iterate the plan based on their own needs. And then I can strengthen generalization, because if I don't show a family how to generalize what I'm teaching them and provide them opportunities to apply the treatment plan to their own environment, we all know what will happen. We'll see the child regress. We won't see those skills transfer. We won't see generalization occur. So we can really strengthen generalization by putting this power into a caregiver's hands. So here are some example prompts, and this is kind of how we'll work through this. Is I'll share some ideas on use cases and then show you how it might look to generate a prompt related to this use case. So for caregiver training, share 10 ideas for practicing turn taking while at the supermarket. The learner is 4 years old, nonverbal, enjoys tickles, and has a difficult time transitioning from their turn. So I use a similar construct for a prompt as I included in the previous slide. And you can see here in a matter of seconds, it provides me 10 different ideas. And if they're too tickle specific or preference specific, right, you can modify your prompt. You can say, no, I actually don't want you to always reinforce with tickles or make it all about tickling, generalize to other reinforcers, right? But now I have 10 ideas I can try. I try one, I have another one in my back pocket, but now I know how to practice this skill in a unique way. And as a caregiver, that's really empowering, because I see this BT do it, or I see this BCBA do it. How do I make that work in my environment? I've got to go to the grocery store. I've got to get things done. And so now I can teach them how to practice this skill in different places and in different ways. Other ideas. So what activities can a parent do with their child to practice requesting items? And so again, you get a lot of relevant responses, but what I really like is that it's considering every part of your request. So because I asked that this be ideas for a parent, the skills or recommendations it makes really feel pretty organic for a parent, right? My kids eat 32 snacks a day. So make a snack bar. That's pretty simple. I'm going to pull out the snacks that I was going to offer them anyway, right? And create a snack bar and place them on the table. Have your child request the snacks they want by saying, may I have an apple, please? And this is where you come in as the person who is going to tailor the intervention. You don't take this and copy and paste it, right? This is just an idea. You've already assessed and identified that this child needs to practice requesting items. You want it to transfer to the home because it's not transferring super well to the home setting or to the family. So now you have that constraint. How do you do it? Well, maybe this child can't ask for a full sentence. So this is a great idea. I want mom to try it. And I'm going to tell her that we can accept an approximation of this request. And so I'm going to tailor this to the client's needs. And then I asked, how do I request open at the mall, right? I've got this same task that I've got to run. I want them to request open. I want a lot of opportunities so that we're getting some repetition. But rather than just sit there and keep throwing things in Ziploc bags and making the kid open it over and over again to request open, that's not natural or socially appropriate or effective, right? So I need new ideas. So here are some ideas, right? And I'm also have the constraint that I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be at the mall, right? So in the store shelves, elevators, escalators, store entrances, things where you have to maybe get creative, but here are 7 ideas right away. And you can always ask for more and it will generate more basically endlessly. I've not tried to test the system that far, but it will provide more as you ask for more too. The other huge benefit that I see is in simplifying terms. So using this technology to minimize the jargon, disseminate information, and improve treatment adoption and generalization. I had a case that I had started on when I first became a BCBA, and I came prepared with terminology and research, and a lot of us have been in the same position. And after I left the home that day, I had a plan. It was for a specific behavior that I wanted to address. And when I left the home, I got an email from my supervisor later saying that the parent had requested me off of the session. And that was a blow for me, because I thought my terms made me sound educated, and I thought we were aligned and on the same page. And the funny thing is that the BCBA that came in after me used the same intervention that I had proposed, but they had figured this out, right? And so some of us are not good at this, either because we've been educated and have crystallized these concepts so firmly in our minds that it's hard for us to deviate, or because we just have an ego and we like to use the terms that we spent so much time learning. So if we need support or help, and also if we just want to save some time, we can ask ChatGPT to help us simplify terms. So you can see an example here. How do I explain negative punishment to a parent in simple terms? Again, the audience here is important, because including that this is a parent that I'm talking to helps the system understand that I need this to be appropriate for their environment, the examples that they understand, and just compatible with their experience. So here you have the definition of the term negative punishment is, and it describes it. Then it gives an example, which I didn't even ask for, right? And then it gives a non-example. So, hey, negative punishment is not about physically hurting or yelling at the child. It's about removing or reducing a positive or enjoyable consequence. And then it gives a reminder, right? So all of this is framed up and provided to me in 30 seconds. And then I can look at it again through the lens of understanding my specific client, the specific caregiver I'm working with, and how I maybe want to present this information. But this really helps me translate what I was originally going to say, which was just jargon, right? And now I'm getting more buy-in from the family. The next keyword, I think I'm doing this right, Amy, is Rasmus. So it's RASMUS.
You got it. Thank you.
Okay. And let's move into program enhancement. So the next use case that we'll talk about is enhancing our treatment programs. So the benefits of using ChatGPT to do this include discovering new learning opportunities and customizing ideas to learner profile. I have worked with a lot of experienced BCBAs in teaching them how to use ChatGPT and apply it in a more specific way to their needs. They are impressed by the ideas that it comes up with, because we can't all, no matter how much experience we have, come up with every new or creative idea. And so this isn't cheating. This is using information that we have based on what a client needs and trying to find unique and different ways to support their learning. Quickly pivot when unsuccessful. How many times have we not progressed a target or a program because we ran out of time for supervision that week, or we couldn't get to it quickly enough? But that BT is now left with an unsuccessful program, and we have no way of pivoting. And so if we need to quickly pivot, we can save a lot of time and be much more efficient if we use technology to help us bridge that gap, and we're not spending so much time simmering in our thoughts. We can replace physical materials with more accessible options and stimuli, and I'll kind of show an example of that too. Minimize risk of satiation and expand reinforcer repertoires. So when we feel stuck, this is an opportunity for us to teach in a new way, teach in a more engaging way, and really improve the quality of treatment that we can provide, rather than relying on what's comfortable and what we've used in the past. It helps us focus on socially significant behavior. Again, this is where it becomes more complex to teach something that isn't straightforward, like colors or objects. This is socially significant behaviors, and it's trickier to find new ways or appropriate ways to teach it, and then also customize it to your learner and their preferences and their age. So start somewhere and then synthesize those ideas and use them in your program. And then understanding developmental milestones. Again, this is a database of a ton of information. And so if you're curious if something is age appropriate or not, you can always ask the system questions related to developmental milestones as well. So some prompt examples and ways that I've used ChatGPT in the past. How can I teach, and then include your age, child with skill deficits or diagnosis, whatever relevant clinical information you want to include, to do X skill. So choose the skill that you've already identified needs to be taught. That's your role, right? Assess and identify. Now, how do I teach it? Or what are some unique or different ways that I can teach it? Because I do have this deficit, or I do have this impact that maybe will affect how well this client learns this skill. What are fun ways to teach? And then you can say that repetitive skill that the BT or the family are so tired of running the same exact way every time. Give me 50 new ways to teach this request or this target, and it will give you different ways. Tell me the steps to teach an age or functionally equivalent age learner how to do X skill. So again, now I want it broken down. So write me a task analysis is basically what you're asking for here. And it's also going to make that task analysis age appropriate. And again, you can iterate. So if it gives me 5 steps and I really think this learner needs smaller steps, then I can say, give me 10 steps for this same task and break it down for this learner. And it will then edit that original request and give you a better option. Here on the right, there's just other ideas. So social stories, expanding a target set quickly. I'll show an example of that. Mad Libs, incorporating preferences, increasing reinforcer repertoires. Just a variety of different ways that we can generate these ideas to really provide higher quality treatment. And this is going to allow for us to start addressing more socially significant behaviors, which I know has been a challenge for some of our practitioners in the field. So here's an example. List 30 requests that are common for a 4-year-old to know. And so I get this whole list of 30 requests. They are all age appropriate. They seem like good options that I can use. But maybe I really want to focus on them being socially appropriate, more social in nature, and something that they can request at home. And so I just iterate my requests a little bit, and it provides me a new list of 30 questions or requests, and they're slightly different. And so this is how this process works. You continuously iterate until you get what you want from the system. And then you take what is valuable to you. So this child really likes their bicycle. We want them to be able to request that because that gives them access to social opportunities, to independent opportunities. And so this is a great segue to teach that skill, and it gives us that idea. Social skills, again, another area that's challenging to teach. You can simulate conversations with ChatGPT. ChatGPT can essentially be whoever you want it to be. And you can say, you are X, you are a parent, you are a 13-year-old teenager girl, whatever persona you want ChatGPT to be, it can be that persona. So you can take turns, you can ask questions, and it's essentially role play, but something that can be practiced away from an environment where we're working directly with the client. And so the alternative uses social stories and scenarios. This is something that we impose a lot on our BTs, and it's great practice, right? But they can also save themselves some time. You know, I worked with a BT, knocked on her window because we were about a minute late to the session. She was sitting in her car outside the home, and she is sweating in her car, frantically cutting out this social story for this client. And not only did she not need to do that, I didn't realize what toll it was putting on her to have her do these tasks, where she could learn just as much or more, because the system of information is going to be a lot more valuable potentially than what she could come up with on her own completely. That this was a waste of time for everyone. And so finding those little opportunities where you can take these tasks that accumulate and burden your team members will really help us improve burnout and support retention of our team members. Here are some examples of some social prompts that you can include or use with the system. So what are some conversation starters for a 12-year-old that has autism and narrow interests? And again, this is general. You might provide more detail here, right? So I'm using this as kind of a foundation or structure. You would include some more things. What are those interests? And what kind of conversations do they typically enjoy, and what constraints do they have, or what behaviors do they engage in when you start to converse about something non-preferred, et cetera, right? And so this is an example I actually kept in here to demonstrate how really refining how you prompt ChatGPT is important. So here, the way that I asked the question, it was interpreted in a way that I did not intend. And so I asked, what are some conversation starters for a 12-year-old? It assumed that I wanted to start the conversation with a 12-year-old. What I really want is some examples of conversation starters that I can provide a 12-year-old with autism who's attempting to make friends to engage conversation. So I slightly changed the prompt and got some different suggestions and some different ways to teach the opening of conversation with a peer to this 12-year-old with autism and narrow interests. And so you can see how you can refine your prompts to get better answers or more appropriate answers. Other examples, so generate social situations related to whatever context and relevant advice. So the system can give advice that's obviously pulling from different databases, but it can help support even the independence of some of our adolescent clients, because we are really challenged with transitioning ourselves out of a job. And as we teach adolescents to use different technologies or different resources to find their own answers, to be more independent, this will support their progress beyond what we can provide in services and treatment. So generating social situations, hey, I'm going to engage in an interview. Here's that next example. Write an appropriate introduction for me. So I can write this prompt for a client, or they can write it themselves. What introduction can I give? Here's a little about me. Here's my age, and I'm looking for my first job. And it will generate a script of some kind, and you can ask it to be more natural, to be more formal, and then find what you like and what fits that client's personality and the unique things about them, and then adapt it to this experience and help prepare them to be more independent in these contexts. Tell me 5 ways to nicely decline someone's invitation. We all know the child that as soon as they get asked to do something they don't want to do, they break eye contact and say, no, thank you. And so we hear no, thank you multiple times a day, because that is what they were taught as a rote response to declining someone's invitation. So if I want to naturalize that, it becomes trickier. Even as adults, we kind of rely on some of the same scripts, right? So I need new ideas. I want different ways that I can say this, because I'm starting to notice that maybe peers are aware of my disinterest, right? And then a task analysis for any activity that I want to have the child be more independent in. I can ask and request for those steps, and so can that client. And so if we want our clients to start driving treatment more and more as they progress through and are able to, this is an opportunity to put a tool and resource in their hands that allows them to do more for themselves. And that's the goal. So here's an example of a task analysis question, right? So write a task analysis for writing a book report for a client who is 10 years old and can understand moderately complex instructions. And then I want it to be between 5 and 10 steps. I don't want this to be overwhelming, just pretty simple instructions. And it gives me those prompts, those steps. So I choose a book, I summarize the story, I describe the characters, explain the setting. So if I'm doing homework and I'm stuck, how do I teach a client to find that answer for themselves? So here, I just changed the wording as if a 10-year-old was asking, but here are the instructions more in a first person. So I'm going to choose a book. So think of a book you've read recently and really enjoyed. It should have a clear story with characters in it. Now, if I have a client that needs more explicit instruction, I just ask for a refined response. But this is a really good starting point, because if someone tells me to do a book report and I go home, if I need my BT or my clinician to come in and help me do that, when they're gone, can I still do it? And so these are the questions we need to ask ourselves, and how can we provide resources so our clients can do more independently? And I can't emphasize that enough. That's why I'm being repetitive about it. So resource barriers, example prompts for this. We know we're in home, we're in centers, we're in schools, we're in community, we're at the grocery store, we are everywhere. So how do we adapt our program? Because right now what I find is sometimes BTs will just share that they just can't run that program because I'm here or there, I'm in the car, or I'm in the backyard because mom has family over, or whatever the constraint is. and I don't have the resources I need. So here are some example prompts we can use right on our phone or our iPad using this system. So write a social story about a child who's anxious about traveling and going on their first vacation. So I may know that that's what the child is experiencing right now, and I can work on this with them very quickly by reading that social story. And again, I can customize it as much or as little as I'd like. Write a funny rhyme about an interest, right? How often do we lose engagement or aren't as effective teaching because we're not seeing eye to eye with the client? We're not incorporating their interests. We're not assuming that this can be modified slightly to consider their preferences. And so these are ways that we can do it without having to be an expert on Paw Patrol, right? We can just know how to ask the right prompt and receive the information we need to engage our learner. Write 10 conversation starters for someone who's shy and likes whatever interests. So again, these are example prompts. Use them however you'd like, but this should be customized to your specific needs. And it's a good segue into BT skill development, which is our last use case. So BT skill development has been challenging. And this is an area that as we grow as an industry, we're hiring essentially an entry-level frontline position to do a very complex and hard job. And they may not always have the work experience or the skill set, especially in the soft skills arena, to be the most effective clinician. And that's not an insult, that's just expected. I was horrible at my first job too. So we want these people to develop skills that help them be high quality clinicians and have an easier time doing the job they have to do every day, because this will make their lives easier. So some example prompts: ways to get the attention of a learner in a group, engaging activities for an age learner when there are no toys around. So this is where we see BTs get stuck a lot. Oh, mom took the iPad, or the iPad died, or his ball got run over by a car, and so we have nothing left. So what do I do now? How do I engage this child? Give me ideas for capturing the attention of a 5-year-old who loves dinosaurs and eating at a restaurant. And then you can also use this to track a BT's ongoing performance too. So outside of just working with the client and using it in that application, you can track BT's performance, feed the system data, and ask for feedback on addressing successes or barriers. I'll show you an example of this data analysis at the very end, and it will walk you through how to use data and then ask the system to respond and interpret it, which is really cool. Not covered here, but I covered in other courses, and definitely something to consider for feedback mechanism. So these are some of those prompts built into the system. So how can I teach a 5-year-old with autism to wipe their shoes at the door after a rainy day? And I ask that, and it gives me a pretty boring standard answer that we all learned in school and getting our masters. This is how I do it. I use visual supports and social stories and all of the fun things, and I create a task analysis. Okay, but what about a fun way? So I edit this question, and that's all I have to say. It already has context. It has my question. It's going to respond or react to my follow-up question. So I ask it just like I would in a conversation. Well, what about a fun way to teach wiping shoes? Because it's a pretty boring task, and I need to practice it, and I need it to be fun, especially for this young learner. And now it gives me a lot of other ideas. I can turn it into a game. I can role play. I can do music and dancing. I can do a visual rewards chart. And so now it's translated my question and interpreted it differently based on my input, and gave me a much more compatible output for what I'm looking for this learner. And you can continue to do that for all prompts. Another way to help develop your BTs is to help them become critical thinkers, and do that through role play. And again, this is time consuming. If you ask me to create 20 different role play scenarios so that I can practice them with the BT or expose the BT to them and have a discussion about it, it would take me an hour, right? So I've got to think through the ones that would be most valuable. I have to write them all down. So here's an example where I designed various scenarios related to ethics, and it created an opportunity for me to have a discussion, and I could potentially also do a role play. So this BT is versed in this ethical dilemma and knows how to respond, but they don't have to actually be in the ethical dilemma, which is really nice for all of us, right? So scenario one, confidentiality and privacy concerns, gives the full scenario, and then it asks the question. And if you wanted it to also provide some choices, you can include that in your prompt too. But these are ways that we can quickly and easily move through teaching, mentoring, and training our BTs without that formality, right? I don't have to have an ethics training developed. I can just throw in a scenario every now and then, or I can role play, this dual relationship is occurring. I need to find a way out of it. How do I have this conversation? So I can ask it for some scripts or some prompts, and we can practice and engage in that experience together. And it's really low effort because it's 30 seconds and you have a response generated. This is kind of applied in some of the other use cases, but creativity, again, is one of those soft skills that not all of our BTs are created equal. And so this system can help us generate new ideas, expand those reinforcer repertoires, and find some similar activities or items, branch out from our one perseverative like preference and move out into these different opportunities and expand that reinforcer repertoire. So here's an example. A BT uses zoo animal figurines for most programs because the child finds this reinforcing. However, the client is becoming satiated and losing interest. And here are the options that it provides me. So it's going to take that core preference of zoo animals, right? But I may not have the figurines, or I may be using them in the exact same way every time I play. And so I'm either satiated or I'm going to wait till you leave and I'm just going to do it anyway. Now I have that zoo animal preference embedded into different activity ideas that, again, I can probably easily do. An animal puppet show, but I'm using cardstock and a paper cutout, but I've got these different animals that this child likes, and I'm going to try something new. That doesn't work. Animal yoga adventure. How difficult is that? Just create a story or a sequence. You can even ask ChatGPT to create that story or sequence, and then the child will mimic the movements and characteristics of different animals. And so I'm not trying to veer far off from this child's preference, but I'm using it instead to expand their repertoire and help them be exposed and engage with other and new activities. Other examples. What are some engaging activities for a 10-year-old with autism if I have no toys around? So this is, again, our resource constraint, and it's not uncommon. And so it gives examples here. Create an obstacle course. You can even do this with chalk or paper, create circles and squares. And so again, you're using your own mind too, but you're using this as a jump point so that you can more effectively and quickly react to your client's needs. Cooking or baking, nature exploration. So let's do like a nature scavenger hunt. Again, like stretching, yoga, storytelling, lots of ideas. And again, you can always ask for more. One other thing that I think is interesting is we always think of creative ways to teach something, and then it's hard to follow through because the resources are so hard to create. So I think, oh, it'd be so cool to teach nouns and verbs and different language components using a Mad Lib, because I loved those when I was a kid. And this child loves funny things that are engaging. And again, they love the zoo, right? But I'm not going to sit there and create a Mad Lib because that's a lot of work, right? So I either buy it. And so we're seeing that a lot more in the field. BTs and our staff are just buying resources endlessly to teach these different concepts because we're not getting creative about our resource constraints. And so this example, here's a Mad Lib about going to the zoo. Once upon a time, I went to the zoo with my adjective friend. And so I can teach these concepts within this Mad Lib that keeps the child engaged, that I created in 30 seconds, and that I can create multiple iterations of in the future if it proves to be a successful and engaging activity for that child. Another example, give me an idea for engaging a 4-year-old that loves superheroes. So again, you've got a scavenger hunt, a full mission, clues, gear, all the things. And so this is just several examples of the same concept, but I'm teaching creativity because now I also have new ideas that if my next client is a 6-year-old that loves bugs, I can also do a scavenger hunt. I never thought of doing a scavenger hunt. So you're giving this BT confidence and tools to be more effective at their job. that translates to easier sessions. And that translates to better retention and people that will actually consider ABA as a career, which we desperately need people to do. Show me creative ways to use a ball with a child that has autism. Again, you get several ideas and activities, and you can ask for more. But it's considering all of these constraints that you've requested. So even balloon tennis, right? I have a ball, but I can have a balloon. I initiate the balloon as a lightweight ball for a game of, pass and catch and hit. So just different thoughts, different ideas, ways that you can apply the technology. Can't have a presentation about AI without ethical considerations, right? So I think I've emphasized it throughout, but it's important to me to share some tips and some considerations for how to use this technology ethically and responsibly. So first is to remain transparent. If I'm using it, I can share that I'm using it. I should let people know if I'm using it in its entirety, exactly as written, I should cite it. If I'm editing it, I also tend to cite it, but include that I've edited or reviewed the information. Verify critical information first. So again, our use cases here were pretty lightweight. So you're not delving into anything that requires like an accuracy check. But if you were to try to explore more research or learn more about something, make sure that you're verifying that critical information. Do not use this for treatment plan development or documentation. It's insufficient and unethical. So just to make that clear, and then do not use PHI or other client identifiers. As you saw, several examples, you don't need to do that. And so give information that is valuable to create the right response, but don't include PHI or any identifying information when you're using the system. And then we had a CASP CEU that talks about the ethical considerations for using any AI really in ABA. And Lindsay Jarrett had said, human monitoring is critical. And this concept is one that I continue to repeat as I present about ChatGPT and other AI technology, because we can't use the AI without having a human contribute, right? Your contribution is important. Your monitoring and management of the system is important. So remember your role and remember that it is critical to the use of technology effectively. Reminders, you're teaching the machine, it's learning from you, it will iterate based off what you share with it. So give it feedback, help it respond the way that you want it to. You can also customize in a more advanced session. We talk about customizing the instructions so that it speaks like you, or it generates a response in the way that you prefer. So maybe I don't want a super lengthy response. I can teach it to create shorter, more concise responses. Learn from the machine. We talked about this quite a bit, but understand what it's providing you in terms of suggestions and information so that you can also learn and further educate yourself so that you are providing the highest quality treatment that you can. Never abandon your own judgments. I'm not going to blankly apply this. I need to judge whether or not this is the right idea or activity to try with this client. And if it's not, can I modify it? Can I ask a different prompt? What can I do to make this better and more effective? Maintain those ethical boundaries, increase the complexity too. I highly suggest that you play around and continue playing around, because that's how you learn. And so you can get more complex in your prompting and the way that you're asking the system to provide you responses over time. Verify information and then individualize use. So again, this is really important because we don't want to abandon the individual nature of treatment by using a blanket technology. But if we change our mindset, this technology can actually help us provide more personalized services to our clients and potentially be more effective as clinicians. For future use, we have tried so many things and I would love to share them in a much longer session, but data scrubbing and analysis, the system can clean your data, analyze it, interpret it. I'll show you an example like I promised about that in a little bit. Supporting translation, so it's very effective or more effective than like a Google Translate in translating information to a different language. Managing process efficiencies, even just asking, how can I make this better? Create a diagram for me. These are things that these AI tools can do. Supporting wait lists by helping families become more independent, creating stimuli and resources. there's very cool technology right now that can create whatever you can imagine. My kids yesterday were playing with me, doing just that. So dog and banana mixed together, and we got a banana dog picture. So there are lots of ways that you can use this to teach and to enjoy session. Improving client independence and learning, we talked about that quite a bit. And then practice management. I saw some owners and some trainers participating today. I highly recommend that you consider some element of AI in your practice management. Chances are that you are doing redundant work, answering questions, organizing documents and files, reviewing and even assessing quality, making sure there's data for every program. All of these tasks take time, and our management team has to be there to lead and mentor too. So the more we can support efficiency in management, the better. So make sure that you're providing that. This is an example of Midjourney, that app or AI tool that I mentioned I was playing around with my kids. I'm using and finalizing this for a training that I'm doing on AI integration and practice management. And this was my prompt, and this is what it generated. So literally took the thought or image out of my brain and created it in 45 seconds. And this is now in my PowerPoint. So this is how we can be better, stronger, more efficient practices in ABA. I also have a discount code if anybody's interested. Hi Rasmus will get you $50 off of an AI integration course if that is something that you wanted to apply this technology to. And this is my email and my website. I have one more quick thing to share that I'll just scroll through to demonstrate one other use case that we'll talk about in that AI integration course. But ChatGPT also allows you to do some data analysis, like I mentioned before. And so I uploaded data, and it quickly started telling me exactly what it was doing. It told me what I included in that data. And just so everyone is aware, since this is recorded, this is false data. It's not including any client information. This is a test spreadsheet, but basically you can see how it works. So it's pulling in all the scoring for different targets. It's telling me the status of those targets: met, in progress, not active, discontinued, on hold. And it distributes them. So I've got several in the high category, medium category, or low category in terms of score. I know how many goals fall in each. So those below 50 are the majority right now at 22 goals. So at quick glance, I can see where are the areas of strength and weakness for this child. What goals should I work on more? What is the predictive analysis of how they're going to progress in treatment? Here are the areas specifically, or the goals specifically, that are high, medium, or low. And I know you can do this one by one, but isn't this much better? So I just wanted to share that quickly because I think that that can be a powerful tool in the future as well. And Amy, thanks so much. I will let you take on next.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mellanie. Our last keyword I'm going to give you is rocks, ROCKS. And I've got just a couple little bit more things with for you real quick. Sorry. Get this back up. Okay. So in the chat, you will see the Google form. Okay. And if you would like to learn more, check out our website and book a demo to see how our platform can help you. Please also don't forget to complete the form in the chat to earn your CEU. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much for learning and growing with us. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but I'm going to stay on, and we'll have about 5 minutes or so to answer some more questions. So thank you all so much for being here, and stay on if you have any questions.